Telegraph, Matthew Lynn. Another EV domino has just toppled. And if they make these run on biofuel, artificial fuel, EVs will be dead in the water. They're referring to Porsche who've now stopped making their own EV batteries. Well, to be honest, I'm not surprised. I mean, they have to have had their fingers burnt with all them flipping trash cans that they've made and all the recalls. And I mean, has anybody heard anything about the ones that the Porsche dealers were told not to sell? The early ones that were waiting for an update to cure a potential short circuit? How an update can cure a potential short circuit, I will never know. A short circuit, by definition, is probably two parts coming into contact with each other that shouldn't do. How is a software upgrade going to do that? How is it going to stop it? We saw on, I can't remember which model now it was, but they found that some of the buzz bars hadn't been torqued down properly and they were in danger of coming loose. And if they come loose, of course, you know, if a battery terminal's loose, a battery post loose, you try and put it on and it sparks if there's current drawing. So that'll be the same thing. It will spark, it will get hot. In the old days, we used to have, when the heated rear windscreens basically first came out and were standard, there used to be, I think, a 30 amp fuse in them. And you'd be driving along and you could like smell fish in the car. This was in Opels and nobody knew what it was. And what it was the 30 amp fuse getting red hot and then the terminals into the fuse box getting red hot and the terminals in the fuse box then transferring the heat to the plastic or Bakelite fuse box and that producing this smell. I don't see how a software update will cure that. Now let me just read you the story because I'm hoping that, you know, Porsche don't do very many things wrong, do they? I mean, I call Taycan's probably the best car, you or me, probably the best car you'll ever drive, like the electric Lotus. They're not what Lotus drivers want, and hence Lotus are now in trouble and they're having to sack or lay off half the workforce. Porsche. Your lady mama. Right, let's just go into it. As I say, I'm hoping that Porsche pretty soon will drop a bombshell that will, might even be another nail in battery electric vehicle coffin, might be a better hybrid coming out. But I'll go into that, so stay in with the video, please. Another EV domino has just toppled. It won't be long before the whole insane scheme will have to be scrapped. What insane scheme's that? It turns out that the speed-obsessed petrolheads, along with the status-obsessed playboys who made up the bulk of its customers, are not really interested in a souped-up lawnmower after all. You'd think they'd be interested in speed. The Taycan goes like the wind. So if it's not speed they're interested in, what is it? Engineering. Porsche, German engineering at its best. Those engines, they're a work of art. Absolute work of art. Is that what they appreciate? They want to see something for the money. They don't just want like what looks like the inside of a washing machine. They want an engine. They want to look under the bonnet and see something. Admire it. We used to have a customer called Mr. Brewer and he used to buy a new Opel Manta every year. We dropped the vehicle off at his house and he would then spend the next 2 weeks having engine parts chromed and polishing underneath the bonnet. When we got one of Mr. Brewer's cars back, it sold like that because it was mint. It was so well looked after. If anything, when it came back 12 months later, it was cleaner than when it went out to the showroom. Oh, actually, funny story, not one for most of my viewers, but one for somebody else who follows me. I've been going in this bar, my mate's bar, for a couple of years. I got talking to a chap and his wife a few weeks ago, and it turns out that his dad was the son of our valeter, Georgie Shorrocks. I mean, what a small world. I've been virtually sitting next to him for 2 years, and I used to work with his dad when, I was 16 probably. Anyway, there you go, Georgie Shorrocks. The sports and luxury car manufacturer Porsche has this week announced that it is giving up making its own batteries for electric cars because the demand isn't there. Meanwhile, the European Automobile and Suppliers Associations have recently written to the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, arguing the 2035 ban on combustion engines is no longer feasible. One by one, the EV dominoes are falling. It can't be much longer before the whole catastrophic experiment is cancelled, but unfortunately not before it has done huge damage to Europe's largest industry. Absolutely, I totally agree. If they'd have been sold properly, how we sold diesels, how we introduced diesels, it wouldn't have done any damage at all. And we'd have probably, EVs would have been making profit, they would have reinvested the profits, and EV sales would grow by osmosis and not by discounts. Stupid. Whoever thought this up is stupid. It couldn't. If you thought about it and thought, how can I get something to fail? The first way to get something to fail is to try and force Brits to do it, because we just won't. I mean, crikey. 80 years on, there's still a few of us that won't bend. It has been another disappointing week for the cheerleaders of Europe's electric vehicle industry. Porsche has just announced it will be winding down production of its own EV batteries with a likely loss of 200 of the 300 jobs. The reason? There is not enough demand from drivers, according to the chief executive, Oliver Bloom. Now, probably 2 years ago, when they were saying that EVs were selling, I saw 2 brand new Porsches.
Oh, you bought a Porsche. Porsche. What do you think? It's cute. But what do you mean cute? I mean, it looks like my car's hot little girlfriend.
In an auction. Brand new, delivery mileage, just registered, in an auction. When have you ever seen a brand new Porsche in an auction? If that didn't send alarm bells ringing, I don't know what would. There is not enough demand from drivers, according to the chief executive, Oliver Bloom. That comes after Northvolt, the Swedish battery startup that was meant to be the largest in Europe, filed for bankruptcy earlier this year. Likewise, in a recent letter to von der Leyen, the Mercedes-Benz chief executive, Ola Källenius, and Matthias Zing, the CEO of the auto parts supplier Schaeffler, warned on behalf of the European auto industry that the 2035 ban on the sale of petrol cars was no longer feasible. Europe, they added, risks becoming completely dependent on China for its supply of batteries. That's what you get when you force people's hands. EVs were meant to lead an industrial renaissance, creating hundreds of thousands of well-paid green jobs, rebooting the economy, re-establishing industrial leadership, and saving the planet at the same time. But it's not looking as if any of that will happen right now. In reality, the ideologically driven obsession with imposing EVs on a reluctant European market is collapsing. There were 3 big problems. To start with, the infrastructure wasn't in place. In most of Europe, people live in apartments, making it very hard to install home chargers. While even in countries such as the UK, where more of us live in houses, it is often impossible to slot a giant plug into a suburban driveway. Now, also what you're forgetting is, as batteries are getting bigger, I've mentioned this before, to charge my iPace, 39 hours from empty on a 3-pin plug. Yeah, but they have fast chargers now. Yes, they have fast chargers now, which will charge an iPace in 7 or 8 hours, is it? From home. Batteries are getting bigger, more powerful. There isn't Your house, you won't be able to charge them for your house. So the whole point of an EV, the only saving on an EV at the moment is on fuel, and that's when you charge at home. But when you go out and you have to charge on the motorway, it's more expensive than petrol. And when you work out the time wasted, you know, it's time you'll never get back. We're on this earth for a good time, not a long time. Do you want to spend it sat in your car charging? Now, a study's come out that says that you go to a charging station and it redistributes through the fans in the electric chargers, it redistributes all the particulates. So while you're charging your car and you're eating your donuts and your coffee, you're also getting bombarded with particulates, which of course the EV people at the start said, oh yeah, you don't get brake particulates on EVs because regen. Tyres last longer. Well, they don't, and you do. So all that's bull. All the experts who were telling you that stuff at the beginning, bull. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish. So soon, you won't be able to charge your vehicle at home. You'll have to use a charger, and it'll cost you more money. Hence, go for a PHEV that you can charge at home or use petrol. All these evangelists, all the EV mouthpieces, they call PHEVs fit to burn. You know, that's like an EV joke. Why? Why will they not accept PHEVs? Why do you think? Likewise, chargers along main roads were hopelessly inadequate, and the cost of electricity was far too high to make it affordable to run an electric car. Next, the manufacturers were in no state to invest the hundreds of billions that were needed to switch from one technology to another. And the reason they're not in a state to do that is because they're having to knock hundreds of billions off the price of EVs to sell them, to tempt people, to make it a financial decision and not an emotional decision to buy a car. Again, do you see how it works? They're cutting their own throats. Indeed, as the success of the Chinese brands along with Tesla has shown, it is probably easier to start from scratch than to convert a combustion engine giant to electricity. Well, obviously it is. Finally, customers don't really like them. Nor do they trust an EV to get them to their destination in time. Add it all up, and one point is clear. They have been a colossal flop. There is a catch, however. Europe's largest industry is now facing full-scale collapse. The major manufacturers can't compete in EVs, and yet their existing products will be banned in just 10 years from now. There is a bit of sunshine on the horizon because, again, as I've said in previous videos, all that experience, all that knowledge making ICE engines, and then, no, you can't do that anymore. All that 70, 80, 90, 100 years experience that you've had perfecting these brilliant engines, these like masterpieces of engineering, you can't make them anymore. You've got to put electric in it. And then the Chinese, who struggled to make a decent ICE car, never made a decent ICE car, copied everything we've done, even shapes. You know, I can't copy. For shame, for embarrassment, I couldn't copy anybody. Chinese, yeah. Oh, that Range Rover Evoque looks nice. Yeah, let's do that. That Porsche looks nice. We'll shape our car on that. Seemingly, they've got no shame. So, level playing field. Now then, a bit of light on the horizon, and here we go. Now, I'm only going to go into this quickly. I might do it properly later. Motor Trade News. BMW and Volkswagen lead winners at 2025 What Car Electric Car Awards. Now you will notice there's no mention of BYD here at all. BYD, the customers' favourites from some of our friends who are a little bit biased, I think, a teensy weensy little bit biased. As I did a video on it and I involved ChatGPT to try and work out how it was possible for this vehicle to be voted one of the favourites and get an award. And my limited intelligence and ChatGPT artificial intelligence couldn't work out how they managed to do it with the amount of cars that were sold and how they managed to get all those people to vote for it in such a small sample. Who knows, eh? Who knows? Perhaps if you get invited to Chinese motor shows and things like that enough, you start to like look at them with, I was going to say cash tinted glasses, but it was a slip of the tongue. I meant rose tinted glasses. BMW and Volkswagen each collected 4 titles at the 2025 What Car Electric Car Awards held in association with charging provider Pod. Ryan Fowler, September the 3rd, 2025. The UK's best electric and plug-in hybrid cars have been revealed in 2025 What Car Electric Car Awards, with BMW and Volkswagen emerging as the most successful brands. No Chinese, there's a French car mentioned, the Renault 5, and to me, that is right. You think I'm biased against EVs? But no, that's right. BMW, they've been knocking the pipe out since the flipping i3, trying to sell these electric vehicles, and they've done okay. Same with Volkswagen. Volkswagen, proper vehicles, aren't they? Let's be fair. Proper vehicles with a history and a reputation to uphold and protect, and who can't just open up and flood the market with EVs, then shut, just leave all these vehicles like Fiskars up people's drives that don't move and are worth nothing, can't get parts for. So that's good to see. Now then, the most interesting bit, I think, Porsche. What are Porsche known for? Now I saw this back last September 18th, 2024. Porsche's 6-stroke engine could kill 4-stroke designs. So we've got 6 photos, and you'll see here that this conrod is connected to another kind of planetary gear here. So let's just go 6 photos, you'll see there. So piston goes up and down, this revolves, and that revolves inside it. There we go. Intake, compression, power, scavenging, compression, power, exhaust. So there's 2 compressions, 2 powers on 1 stroke and 1 exhaust. To me, it looks brilliant, but 2 more strokes. Valves there. A patent for a 6-stroke engine would normally go directly into our crackpot engine file, but when the patent filer is Porsche, we feel obligated to examine it further. Unlike a 4-stroke engine, which musters a single power stroke for every 2 revolutions of the crankshaft. Suck, squeeze, bang, blow. Okay? Porsche's 6-stroke affords 2 power strokes for every 3 turns of the crank. Exactly how the automaker accomplishes this is a bit of an enigma. 6 strokes, 7 cycles. Porsche's 6 strokes, including the 4 familiar ones, intake, compression, power and exhaust, but it inserts an additional compression and power stroke in the middle, following the first power stroke, to create a 1080 degree combustion cycle. This works because at roughly 500 degrees of rotation, the piston approaching its lowest position opens side ports in the cylinder wall that allow the cylinder to scavenge, blue arrows below, simultaneously finishing the exhaust process and introducing air for the ensuing second compression stroke. From the patent drawings, it appears the engine uses a mechanism on the crankshaft to vary the stroke of the piston as it proceeds through the combustion cycle. If the patent diagrams are anything to go by, Porsche intends to vary the stroke between about 83 and 108. Another unusual feature is the set of ports positioned towards the bottom of the cylinder that remain covered until the piston in its longest stroke position reaches bottom dead center. Taking these attributes into account, we believe the concept works something like this. The intake, compression and power strokes are completely conventional, except for the variable stroke, which goes from 83mm on intake to 101mm for compression, and then to 118mm on power. This largest stroke is critical because it lets the piston go low enough to uncover these aforementioned ports. Now, you see there, can you see? That kind of looks like the crankshaft. That's revolving inside this circle. So it's altering the length of the piston stroke. What happens from here is a bit fuzzy, but these ports likely flow pressurized air presumably from a turbocharger, which subsequently forces out the remaining exhaust gas through the exhaust valves, filling the combustion chamber with air. This scavenging cycle, the fourth of 7 cycles, is the 6th stroke, has to happen quickly because only during the bottom 17mm of piston travel are these ports partially or fully open per the patent drawing. With the cylinder now mostly filled with fresh air, the piston moves up again for the rest of the 118mm compression stroke, with fuel injected along the way. A conventional 101mm power stroke and an 83mm exhaust stroke follow, completing the 6 strokes and 3 revolutions of the crankshaft. This has to be one of the biggest advancements in ICE engines. Now, can you imagine this 6-stroke engine coupled to a good hybrid? It's a game changer, isn't it? Absolute game changer. It must be cleaner. So, who's to say that this petrol engine, you know, with a bit of tweaking, who's to say it can't be as clean as an EV? Don't forget that an EV is dirtier to produce than an ICE car. So the ICE cars have already got some clean air in the bank. When they're both sat in the showroom, the ICE car's cleaner. And only 23,500 miles later, does the EV catch up? Now that's at the present. If they make ICE engines cleaner, you know, the gap. And if they make these run on biofuel, artificial fuel, EVs will be dead in the water. Porsche pulling out of batteries, going into engines. Makes you think, doesn't it? Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Ta-da.